When Bob gets here, he can join us. With that, let's go ahead and call the meeting to order. We have the agenda up there for us too. First order of business is to, announce the next hearing, which is January 25th. Then we'll swear in the staff. Everyone here who is with the city of Columbus, raise your right hand. You swear and affirm the testimony you're about to give us the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
So say I do.
I do.
Thank you. And then the roll call, please, Louis.
Steve Whitman,
Here?
Mike Luss. Here. Loverson is not here. Jana Maniaci. Here. Ed Hardesty. Here. Tony Slanik.
Here?
Trudy Bartley.
Here.
Otto Beatty III. Have a quorum.
We have a quorum. Thank you. And would you review the hearing format, please?
Sure. So what's going to happen is city staff will present each application and the materials, site location, street view, site visit. Then the applicants, they'll be seated there. They will be sworn in and asked to present any additional materials. There is a clicker up there, and then you will go through your slide presentation with the commissioners. The registered speakers will be sworn in, or if anybody wishes to speak, the commissioner will ask if anyone from the public wishes to speak, and they'll be given 3 minutes to speak each. And commissioners will discuss the case and ask questions if needed, and take a vote.
Thank you very much. I guess it's time to go on with the applications then.
Sure. So the first case is 555 Edgar Waldo Way. It is here at the White Castle Beach Development. The applicant is proposing to install a wall sign on the northwest corner of the residential building fronting on North Goodale Street. The parapet mounted channel letter sign will be internally illuminated and located above the fifth floor windows. The guidelines for graphics are that wall signs are preferred downtown because of its pedestrian oriented district. And there are no specific area requirements, but the size should be proportional to the building to which it is attached. So the proposal generally meets the guidelines with regard to the graphics. And the basis for that is the graphics section of the downtown district design. That's it.
Okay, very good. Can we get the, you take over from here. Would you identify yourself, please?
Yes, I'm Bob McCollum, and I'm here representing a Grant Sign
Could
Company.
you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear and affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? And so say I do.
I do.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, we're just here asking for approval of the individually mounted channel letters on the reach. It's a typical channel letter, so we've already done up there. They will have a white face, and the drawing, I think, drawing page 2 indicates the side of the building that the letters will be mounted to.
Are these the same size as the stuff you've done before?
Yeah, I believe that these are 24-inch letters.
Yes,
Yeah.
I see that. Okay. And you can see a picture of how it looks on the building. Is it just the one or were there two, aren't there? Or is this it?
There's
We're
just
getting
one-
mixed
one-
up.
There's just
Okay.
one set of letters.
Any thoughts on this, please? Could I have a motion to approve then, please?
I'll move to approve.
Okay, a
Second.
motion and a second. Thanks very much. Any other questions, comments? Anything from the audience? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I made it just for fun.
Every once in a while it gets easy. Great. Next case then,
We
please.
go to the next here. All right. But one thing, we didn't do a motion to approve the minutes last
Oh,
week.
I beg your pardon. I thought there was something. It seemed like there was something. Could I have a motion to approve the minutes? Okay, thank you. There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, the motion to approve the minutes is on the floor. Did anybody have any questions, comments, additions, deletions? Okay, I looked them over. They look fine to me too. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Louis. for
Yeah.
that.
Next case is 190 South High Street. Here's a aerial view of the location. This is right here to the west of Columbus Commons, this building right here. They're going to be putting 2 wall signs on the interior facing the park space there. So they're proposing 2 internally illuminated wall signs on the eastern elevation of the building facing Columbus Commons. The larger sign will be mounted to the parapet of the building and will consist of single-face illuminated channel letters. The smaller sign will be mounted on the second floor above the pedestrian archway and will consist of a plaque sign with dimensional illuminated push-through graphics. Guidelines for graphics are the same, except for crowded or cluttered graphic arrangement should be avoided. And the proposal generally meets the guidelines with regards to graphics based off the analysis of the graphics section, the guidelines.
Is someone here for the applicant, please?
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Rebecca Green. I'm with Zoning Resources, and today I'm working with Columbus Sign Company.
Did you get the name and everything?
Yeah, Rebecca.
Did you raise your right hand? You swear to affirm the testimony you're about to give us the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So say, I do.
I do.
Thank you very much. Go ahead. You can show us what you got and tell us about it.
There's a clicker there if you want to click through the slides. Yes.
I'm sorry. Do I use this here?
Yes.
Very good. So this is the rendering of the apartment building, the High Point. These are single channel letters, white face. They are facing east towards the Commons. We're trying to attract an area that we can see from the Commons. The placement of the letters are on, as you can see on slide 2. I'm sure exactly how to use this.
I got it.
Thank you. Is the reason we put them here on the parapet are that the cornice under the cornice is not something that we can use to stand on or have our workers on to place those below the cornice. And also there are windows underneath the cornice that are would not provide an area to put this kind of signage. We want to be able to keep the workers safe and have it above the cornice, and that is why we decided to use these kind of letters and in this location. The plaque that we are talking about is just a plaque that's over the pedestrian walkway from the Commons to High Street, and again, it's a small plaque that is back as the illumination in the back. Happy to take any questions.
Okay.
Yes, I have a question.
Yeah, please, go ahead.
Yes.
Yeah, I may not have heard you well.
Oh, I apologize.
Mask.
By the way, you're welcome to take your mask. I think you're well separated and it just makes it easier to hear people.
Oh, very good.
Thank you.
What is the owner's purpose of putting this sign in for the building?
The purpose is to gain some additional presence from the Commons. Other businesses have done the same thing. I know Roots Insurance has also has signage towards the Commons as well as that's the purpose.
What's the height on these letters, please?
I believe
4
they're
feet.
4 feet 6 inches and a half. The spacing is to reflect the customer's logo, the High Point logo is spaced in this manner. This part of the building is massed forward. So are spaced to match that massing that's forward on the building. And then again, the size and proportion is based on the
Does, what are some of the other heights of signs in that area? Do we have any sense of that? They're not massive letters, but maybe a little bit on the high side, 4 feet. I don't know, maybe that's not.
Yeah, at that height, it seems like you need something that reads a little larger.
I wanted to ask you from the back, you have the exposed metal channel in the back. Do you feel that from across the street, any buildings from across the street could see the back of that or not, not really? You could see the back of your sign?
I would think it would be a just de minimis kind of view, don't think substantial.
Can you see it, show us the picture of the flip back to that, either Rebecca or Louis? No. Yeah, there we go. So about half of the letters will be up above the parapet.
So, yeah, and again,
Say, so that's 2 feet, it's as much.
that's approximately two and
Of course, they're also going to be looking at air conditioning condensers and other rooftop items. Okay, what's the pleasure of the group? Any thoughts, comments?
I like the way it interacts with the parapet. I guess one question, did you consider that, for instance, the H aligns with that very edge of the building? And I wonder if it would feel better if it was centered and offset by a couple of feet in each direction. I guess I just feel a little tension with that H right on
On the end?
the edge of the building.
Because the T doesn't seem to.
Right, and the T doesn't do that, right?
Yeah. I don't know if that, is that intentional or is that just a mistake on the rendering? Or is it the intention to center it or?
the intention was to center it. And I think the reason the T looks a little in is just the nature of the letter
Oh,
T.
I think
Yeah,
you're lining it up
right.
with the, but I agree with what Ted is saying, that even though technically that's correct, maybe splitting that, splitting that dimension and bringing the H a little in and the T maybe hanging over a little bit. But I do think it might look a little more centered.
Is that supposed to be 2 words, high point, or is it high point, 1 word?
High point is one word.
I'm just looking between the H and the P there. It looks like it's almost, and again, when you play with letters sometimes, if you line them up, exactly spacing them and so on, sometimes they don't read just correctly.
Our eyes see
Your
it.
eyes do things to
Yeah,
it. Yeah, like,
that's right, the spacing.
for example, the O looks like it needs more space than the I does, which of course it does.
That's what I don't like is you still see the bracketing, like the mounting brackets behind the O especially, and beyond the G. Is there a way to better mask that? And the bracketing sort of mimic the structure of the letter? If you look at the O, it kind of has like a little like points to it. It's like a square behind it. The G's got a little extension above where it makes the left.
I don't know the picture exactly, for that,
I'm sure the fabric.
but I understand your
Yeah.
concern.
Yep.
That you would want that to be,
Now, one thing we do get with elevations is, if, you're going to be looking at it, you're probably going to be standing on the ground. Which can make a difference.
and of course, the cornice is going to
But
be.
I said,
But I
oh,
think the commissioner asked about the buildings from the other side of High Street, looking at the back of it, not the, so you have the Lazarus building and then you would have the, well, actually, not that, but yeah, the Lazarus building.
All the stuff on the west side of High Street.
I'm
Well-
just saying with that comment, maybe sometime, maybe the back could be finished. If you felt that that was an issue, then the back could be finished too, so that it doesn't look unfinished from other buildings on the other side. But like you said, I really don't know if that would be such a minimal issue or if that, would be something to consider.
What would mean finishing?
Oh,
Painting it, for example?
perhaps.
What is it going to be? What is the material on it? It looks like it's just,
Painting it dark or maybe putting.
can we see the picture of the back again? Can you flip over to that?
I think it's mostly some
There we go.
bracketing,
So,
but again, it's just aluminum bracketing. Letters
what's the
itself.
back, what's the color of the back of the letters then?
It's just black.
I wonder if it could, here it shows like, it just looks like galvanized
That's right.
frame kind of stuff. It's like you could use metal studs or something. I wonder if it could just be painted to match the back of the letters. I mean, does that accomplish maybe what? That would kind of clean it up, maybe.
So painting the bracketing, is that what you're concerned? Yeah.
The bracketing would then match the back of the letters.
Understand.
And then I think at that point, I mean, if it sticks up above the parapet, it's gonna stick up above the
Right, but
parapet.
at least it looks like it's finished.
So if the track and the braces could be finished too.
It also looks like what, Tony was talking about, that maybe in the field, the studs, or the bracket, bracing can be maybe cut so that it, just maybe feel cut. I don't know.
Oh, the O, for example, you mean?
Yeah, like, oh,
So it doesn't
what's
stick
the-
out of the
Right.
letter. I think that should happen too. I would agree with that.
Are those
The
metal?
O and the G. are-
Yeah, it seems to be the one that's
You have
missed.
good eyes.
Okay, somebody want to make, I think we're kind of closing in. Does somebody want to make a motion to do something here, please? If you don't like it, we can ask them to come back and adjust it. And the way to do that would be to,
I'll move for approval, with the condition that the back, the supporting brackets behind the sign are the same color,
and the track as well.
and the track is the same color, as the back of the sign, and that none of the brackets show from the front side.
I'm not sure that I
Okay,
can.
There's let's get this. So that's a motion. Is there a second for that?
Second?
Okay, we do have a motion on the floor. Would you, and now, please, anything?
I apologize. So I am concerned, I'm not sure we can have no bracketing showing. That would be a condition of approval?
The way the motion is, that would be yes. Now, here's what I think we're getting at is, if you have a curved line like this, the way it shows it in your drawing, you have a piece of the bracket that sticks up above it. I think to the extent of, if you have the eye and you have a piece of bracketing behind it, and I suppose you're standing way over here and you can see something behind it, I don't think that's what we're talking about, are we? No, I think we're talking about the curved line where it literally sticks out. So that, let's say you were straight on in front of it, you would see it sticking out behind the letter itself. Does that make sense?
It does. Thank you.
I think what I'm hearing is we're probably willing to approve it on that basis. If that, excuse me, if that doesn't work, you can come back and we'll talk about it. I'm going to guess they're going to say that's fine, and it's not really very difficult.
Thank you.
Okay, good. Any other questions, anything from the audience? And that works for you then, today then?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, comments from the commission? Oh, okay, go ahead, please.
Question. The small sign that you showed over the arch, is that all internally illuminated or just the height, just the logo with just the text within it or the initials within it?
Just the text within it, and I believe it's got some spill also. From
Let's take a
back,
quick look at that.
because it does stick out. So it's got some of that. It's a dimensional plaque, so there is some,
Does that mean that what we see there that appears to be lit would be lit? Is that the idea?
that's correct.
Anybody have a problem with that? Because we're approving that as well. Okay, so let's vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you very much.
Okay. Next case is 405 Neal Avenue. Currently Express Lodge, just north of Huntington Park. So the applicant is proposing the installation of a graphics package consisting of 6 internally illuminated channel letter wall signs, window signs, marquee cabinet sign, a pavilion sign, and an awning sign. The signs will be replacing the existing Express Live signage on the building. So wherever there's an Express Live signage, they're changing it out to now say Kemba Live. The staff analysis, the graphics from the previous two cases are the same. And the proposal generally meets the guidelines with regards.
Okay. And you're already sworn in, Bob, so go ahead.
Yeah, we're, proposing,
Bob,
McCollum.
that's right. Same guy.
First, I'm gonna say I'm playing lottery.
Put your mask back on so it's
You
regular.
understand. I'm playing lottery tonight because I've been doing this for 37 years and I never had the top three on the agenda, so I apologize here.
How's it feel, all right?
That's great. I'm good. So we're proposing a change out. We tried to keep the square footages of the Kimball Live as close to the Express that was there. And we're simply replacing every sign that says Express with Kimball Live.
So no additional signs.
No additional signs.
So
Voluntary.
just that one there, huh? Well, you've got two.
There's several signs. There's signs interior, there's one sign that faces Neil that's the most visible to the public, and then if you go to around the corner where they park their staff, there's one there. And then most of them, the rest of them are mostly inside the venue.
Are all the letters the same height?
They're various heights, because again, we tried to keep what was there, so
Okay.
they range anywhere from like 42 inches to 48 inches.
And 40?
They are slightly larger though.
Yeah, we try to, because of the
Yeah.
layout, but we tried to keep it as close as we could.
So are the graphics on the windows new?
They're replacing they're new, the Kimbas are green, because they're marketing, but there's already graphics out there, so we'll be taking those off.
Okay.
I had a question about the vinyl graphic,
Mhm.
and I think, but do you just have that on one set of windows or on two? Is it just one bank of windows?
There's a bank that faces Neil, and then inside the venue where all the party goes on, there's a set of windows there.
Okay, well, this one, maybe, there was one where it looked like on one of the upper panels, there was also the logo of Kimba. There's a slide for that?
Talking about the window signs?
Yes, the window sign.
Not that.
There. that
Yeah.
one. And I'm just wondering, the one on the top, is that the one facing Neil, or is that?
No, that faces in the venue.
That's in the
Yeah,
venue?
if you've ever been there, there's like the Great Slice or something like that, where the food court is. It's right across from it.
It's right here. It's internal.
Oh, it's in-
This is a lot more signs than we normally want on a project. This is the arena district, and when we set up signage guidelines, this is what we're looking for. Chaos. We didn't have to say that in guidelines, but we were looking for a lot of action. Placement, what we're sorting.
Well, and a lot of these are kind of what I would consider internal anyway.
Yeah.
And there's three of them that are internal.
Yeah.
And three that are external, including, if you look at where Arch is there in the grass, there's a parking lot behind that. There's actually a sign that faces that parking
On the
lot right at
fence.
the entrance.
On the fence?
It's on the wall.
Okay. And then basically with respect to Neil Avenue, which frankly I think is our number one concern here. You've seen that one then. Any thoughts? Yeah. Any
Yeah.
thoughts, problems on that one?
That's Neil Avenue.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clean.
Yeah, I think that.
Yeah, maybe better, right?
Yeah.
The one on Neil Avenue, I think the vinyl is nice because it's simple.
Mhm.
And the one that is a little busier, it's fine if you say it's internal.
Okay, what's the pleasure of the group, think, please? Move to approve? Second. There's a motion and a second. Who made the motion? I didn't. Okay, thank you, Tony. Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Any other questions, comments for the applicant, for anybody, anything from the audience? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you very
Thank you
much.
so much. I'm leaving now, sir.
Oh, okay. Have a great day and a great holiday. Thank you.
Everybody else.
Okay, so the next case is 59 Spruce Street. North Market Tower. They're proposed to construct a 31-story mixed-use tower in the North Market parking lot. None of the details have changed. 350 straight parking garage, 700,000 square feet, 11,000 square foot expansion in the North Market, 20% reserved for workforce housing. So the applicant is seeking approval for the demolition, the new construction, and landscaping, but will return at a later date with lighting and graphic details. To clarify, any kind of building lighting will come back above the first floor, but they are seeking approval of the landscaping plans, the streetscape plans on their parcel, and the lighting plans on the building and first floor. They have some images of sconce lighting and stuff that the issue with. They came before the commission for conceptual review in September 2019 and 2021 at the September 2021 meeting. Then he actually asked why the residential was divided by the hotel and that the open garage to the south should read as intentional. Whitman asked if they said he loved the Wall Street space and had they thought about how to improve the other side. Bartley asked why the lots were separated from the other hotel residences. It is making a socioeconomic divide. Usually affordable housing is interspersed. Riddler asked about the sustainability, and Loversich asked how they will deal with the archaeology on the site. And they would like traffic to speak to the commission as well. So the applicant has included additional details regarding the demolition, paving, and planting, streetscape lighting, and building construction. The exterior elevations have not changed, but isometric views in sections of the coffee shop, courtyard, restaurant lobby, porte cochere, gas meter, and traffic enclosure have been added. The guidelines state that the built environment will continue to be enhanced and energized with new buildings and improvements to the public realm. Building height, scale, and design quality relate to the city's development goals for a broader downtown, while also addressing the context and compatibility of a proposed building with its more immediate surroundings. Downtown is home to the region's most intense development. Any larger scale buildings are appropriate, particularly at the core. The commission encourages maximizing the investment potential of a given site, and building materials should be of high quality and durability. So in summary, the proposal generally meets the guidelines as stated above. Staff notes that the proposed tower was conditionally approved by the Historic Resources Commission at their November meeting with the following conditions: that the proposed footprint, height, massing, materials, and skin of the building are approved. Conditioned on the submittal of a comprehensive color-coded drawings package, notating colors and materials, and including but not limited to exterior lighting, landscaping, and awnings prior to the issuance of a certificate of appropriateness. The demolition and modifications to the existing North Market building were approved by the Historic Resources Commission. So in order to, they are still going to return to HRC for final approval. It was conditionally approved. And I did speak to the staff member of the planning division of the Historic Resources Commission, and she indicated that the materials that they have submitted for this meeting meet all of the conditions put by HRC. They feel that it meets those requirements, and she is hoping for them to give her a staff approval at the next business meeting. So what they have provided here will be what they show HRC, so there won't be any changes. That's it.
So there would, if we approve it here, it goes from here to the HRC for their final approval. Is that the idea?
Yes, so it was, they reviewed it and they conditionally approved it. We would approve it if we decide to approve it now. It would go to HRC for final approval. We could also, if there's any concerns, we could approve it conditioned on the fact that it matched any requirements imposed by HRC. That makes you feel better.
Okay. I'm trying to think about how to go through this. This is a large proposal, large package, and we have seen this in some detail. And I think we had gone pretty far down the road in terms of what was acceptable to us. So why don't you folks just kind of take it from here? In the meantime, would you identify, and if you'd like to, I think because you're separated from folks, you're welcome to take your mask off. If you could speak more easily, you don't have to.
A little easier,
Okay.
thank you.
And would you identify yourselves for the record, please?
Daniel Ayers, principal with NBBJ Design.
Mark Parrish, architect at NBJ.
And then we have see from the client that we want to swear in at the same time.
Okay, we'll swear, yes, if you'd identify yourself, swear you in as well.
Sure. Ben Pearson, Rockbridge.
Julie Brownfield, RMHD.
Great, thanks. Would you folks raise your right hands? Do you swear and affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, say I do.
I do.
Thank you very much. Okay,
So yes, a lot of detail, a lot of things that we've been going through, a lot of work with HRC to get to this point, which has been great. The overall process and working with both commissions, I believe we've been able to continue to develop and finalize the design in a way that I believe works and matches the downtown's goal of creating a new destination in our mind. So today we brought the actual materials just to show you look and feel. I mean, the renderings, I believe, are a good representation of that. But we can go through those individually if you like. We spent a good amount of time with HRC reviewing those materials and the details. We can dive into as much detail as you would like. The key aspects of that we were looking for, the two issues that HRC was looking for is we were missing one spandrel glass, which has now been submitted to them. And the other one was the colored elevation that called out all the materials. And so those are integrated into your package, so you can actually see what has been submitted to to HRC. So it was conditional approval, but based on those two things that they were required.
so those would both represent changes from what we had seen the first time?
No, we just didn't bring it to the meeting. It's a physical sample of
Okay,
the
so it's
spandrel.
what we saw before.
It's the same design, we just were missing that one, and then they wanted an elevation. Our elevations were black and white that called out the materials. They wanted to see a color elevation with the materials called out where they are going.
Okay, I think the two changes, just for clarity, was one, we did not have physical materials last time we were here. Initial concept review with the HRC. Our last meeting where they conditionally approved it, we had the physical samples to go through with them.
Yeah.
And we were missing span. So that's here, and that was coded into the drawings that are before you, or will be before that for their final.
So yes, for landscape, we've added planting plans. We have the paving plan, lighting plan for site level, as Lewis had mentioned, or staff had mentioned. So we have those details in here. What's coming up now on the screen are the new pages that we've submitted to HRC. Hopefully this PDF is rather large. Colored elevations with the material callouts, along with the black and white still that call out the more detailed information and specifications for each of the materials. So that was one of the asks that they had. And so we've continued to do that. So it really depends, I think, based on the comments from Downtown Commission of what you had before, if there, we have increased the amount of detail in the package, everything down to the window louver, or the louvers and exhaust for the residents to details around how the brick and materials like grade would be. I don't know if there's.
Yeah, I mean, I think the meat of the conversation last time we were with the HRC folks was really understanding the quality of ensuring, I would say, the quality of kind of the detailing and materials, and that what they were seeing, and particularly the podium, kind of the pedestrian realm renderings, was in fact what they were going to get. And so, as Dan noted, we spent a good bit of time including those to ensure that things like window depth down at the bottom 25 feet wasn't fudged. They were actually getting depth that was indicative of kind of a heavy masonry building and had that sort of look and feel. Ensuring the quality of the glazing systems, for instance, at the hotel entry, where it's a legitimate steel storefront, has that look and feel of an old industrial building that kind of fits the affect and the character of the neighborhood. So I think just I want to reiterate that was really the heavy lift there with them, was just ensuring that I think everybody felt good with what was in the renderings, and that was actually showing up in the drawings. They could have some confidence in that.
I see a graphic in those drawings. Is that on the south side of the building? Is that the south wall of the park?
It is the west wall over the top of the existing North Market.
Okay.
It is undetermined at this point of what it will be, but it will come back for graphics approval.
So the idea of that is that would be a location for a graphic.
You're correct.
And you would come back for approval.
Correct.
Is that intended to be, yeah, that's what I was going to ask.
Not an adder. That is
Okay,
not.
so it's
art.
Okay, thank you.
So it would be something like of a permanent nature, you would say, determined design.
Yeah, as a baseline until that pushes for a basic CMU, that just the material CMU.
You know what, I am having a horrible time hearing you. Could you guys maybe switch that to
Hey, no
the
problem.
middle somewhere? Oh, perfect, thank you.
The baseline of the wall as it stands today is just a big CMU, which basically matches the east side of the North Market, side of the current parking side.
Unpainted then? So would it be concrete color? Is that?
Currently, it's a natural gray. We can see.
No, no, thank you.
Look at the site plan, please.
Oh, you have a clip there, so.
Oh, good about that. Oh, yeah.
No, page it is.
Is back right after the renderings is all the site and landscape.
It's a little lag. Such a blow.
And tell me again about the glazing on this. Do you have different kinds of glazing in this then? Because, and you talked about spandrel glass, and so.
Yeah, so we have multiple, I want to be clear with your question. Are you asking specifically glazing or more the system in general?
No, about the glazing itself.
Okay.
Is what I'm.
So for the glazing itself, there is no spandrel until about the 21st floor on the building. So everything within the brick mass and then the podium level is all transparent glazing. The first 25 feet, which is basically that pedestrian realm, all of the major entries, the retail, all of that is a high VLT, high visibility, transparent glazing to make sure we've got real visibility into those spaces and are kind of driving.
So does that read as clear glass or
It's
tinted
as
or?
clear as you can get.
Light,
Meeting
light
today's
tint, you can
performance
see it.
standards.
Coloration on it, but
Yep.
basically 4 glass
Yeah.
types, 2 spandrels and two other glazing, one for a higher performance up on the residential portion and on the hotel. But then the spandrel glass allows us in certain opaque areas on the glass facade to do 2 different colors to that to provide a bit of a, not just a flat face to it. It'll provide, and you'll see in the elevations, 2 slight different colors in that elevation.
So it really becomes the wall
It
material.
becomes a wall. And
Yeah.
the point of the 2 colors is really, when it wraps a core, for instance, we've got 24 feet, 25 feet of unbroken spandrel that it's not just flat, right? So that the building feels like it's kind of living and breathing, like it would the vision zones adjacent to it.
And how about the frames then? What color are the frames?
So it's over on the tape
Dark.
there. It's essentially a dark warm gray.
And is that on the entire project?
The entire project, save for the pedestrian realm, the hotel entry, the retail at the corner, and then the market expansion are all more of a black color. So there's kind of 2 tones. It's a little heavier to go with the heavier masonry coloration at the base. The brown that's on the rest of the building kind of washes out with the darker gray
Gotcha.
brick down below.
Okay.
Yeah, we can pass those around
yeah.
too if you want.
Okay, thank you for that. And then why don't you go ahead, Bob had asked about the site plan, and if we can, we tracked it.
Yep, we got it.
Good.
Could you just walk us through what's happening on the site in the pedestrian? And then we got a letter from Barley's that was complimentary of how you're handling trash and some of that stuff. Just kind of walk us through where all that stuff ended up.
So programmatically, just walk you through the program.
Well,
First.
Sure, so, yeah,
where things are happening.
So I want to start on Wall Street. I mean, you mentioned Barley's. We've been continually working with the neighbors in that area on both how loading will work, traffic with the city. That is, and you'll see in this drawing, that is all, and technically in a separate submittal, we're working with the city on for those improvements. But to that point, we are to help clean up Wall Street, taking the trash that's currently all there, all the trash cans, and pulling them into our project. And so That helps clean up that right of way. It allows for an actual pedestrian walkway of 8 feet to go along that west face of Barley's and along that side of the street, along with drop off and valet in that area. So Wall Street really is the front door for the project. So programmatically, that's where the hotel guests are coming in. That's where office guests, residents have a separate entry, which is just to the south of the hotel entry. And then the parking garage entry and exit is from that location. As we move up to Spruce Street, on that corner, major restaurant, major visibility. As you come around, there is a patio that is pushing out to the north side that allows for that activity along the street front.
Can you show us where that is on the drawing, please?
Yeah, I may just, well.
Absolutely. You're
It's
welcome.
easier to point. I like to walk. All right, so as we come up and around the corner, this corner being the most visible as you're coming both, just given the plaza space here, your visibility from the convention center over to the North Market, this being an active outdoor patio for the restaurant, gives us the ability to keep that activation on Spruce. As you come around, we have recessed the building back. In many respects, creating a courtyard that allows for more of the programmatic functions inside between the restaurant, the main lobby space, and the coffee shop to spell out into a courtyard space. So again, activated spaces inside this, a little bit more private, and then we've created another outdoor public space, which allows for people to set two-sided fireplace that allows for activation again on both sides, great retail entry, and then this is the shared plaza space between the North Market and the rest of the development. This is where tents will be set up for all the events, North Market events, any of the market activities, along with an elevated plaza that is now part of the expansion space for the North Market and that main entry in. The landscape here actually has a ramp that's integrated into the stairs, so we're able to, in many respects, artfully integrate in the ramp and the stairs together into one, so it's not just a separate. So trying to include as much of that into that access to that.
But that'll be exterior then.
It's all exterior here. It's about 3,000 square feet, which will be working with the North Market. And we have a small space here, which is the loading area, that there is some exiting and loading between the North Market and the new tower.
What's that space on the west side of your building there where you butt up against the north? Yes, right, that area in there. And
So this is-
and then inside your building.
So inside our building, this is the 9,000 square foot expansion for North Market.
So is North Market, it'll actually be part of the market? Will it be open then, or do you have doors?
Yeah, this will be, our goal here is to actually have 2 fire doors that just basically open up. So when you walk by, it's just open from inside the North Market. You'll visually see into that space as a true expansion of the North Market.
So that'll be open. Well, let's say if North Market closes at 10 o'clock, does that close? You
Those
close
doors
for
will
10
close
o'clock?
there.
Okay.
This stays open as an access point for the hotel guests. If you're coming from a hockey game later, you can come in here through, they'll close this down, the new North Market up at Bridge Park. They close all of the individual kiosks so that they are, so you can leave this space open 24/7. People have access and can walk through it, but the actual vendors will be closed down.
But they will have vendors in there.
Yes. this
Will
will
you
have-
manage that, or do they? I mean, what if, do you have any control over who goes in there and what goes in there? And
North Market will control what goes in there. What we'll be hoping to design, still working on, is the actual layout, final layout for that space.
I have 2, I guess, questions or comments, and one has to do with Wall Street. I love the fact that, this is such a large building, but you're able to create this urban, intimate entry with a lot of character. And it looks like some of the businesses on the other side of Wall Street have, let's say maybe a back door, but they have a street presence, but some don't. So are you, in talking with the other commercial businesses, have you thought of ways that maybe if that's really the back of their building, they can maybe do something on that back facade to give it a little bit of a presence?
So the back facade for them, between taking all the trash cans out and that as a major, and upgrading the overall infrastructure, we're also taking all the overhead power lines down. So those will all be underground as part of the city's scope of work. That will clean that side up. it really comes up to them. I mean, we did try to create, there are some larger areas where potential for outdoor seating or other things could happen. It's not all the way. We actually shifted our whole building over off of our property like by 15 feet to create as large of it and expansive of space on Wall Street for those type of activities for them. So it's really up to them how much they're able to access or utilize that. But one of the upstairs patio is actually accessed off this back area. So we believe we've been able to make this an overall major improvement with just cleaning up the streetscape and giving them a better face and activity on the street.
And the second was the wall and vine, that intersection there, and I know you said you're going to talk with traffic. Is that the garage, is that an exit, an entry, or both?
This is
Oh,
excellent.
I'm sorry, no, on
On Vine, these are basically valet spaces that will have access out the Vine, but only parking garage access will come out to Wall. And that was based on traffic analysis that with the Vine Street garage coming out, and this garage coming together, we would overload volume.
That's what I was, because did you have it that way before?
Yes.
That's what I was going to say, because I was concerned about that traffic coming in and out of the garage and that tight intersection there, and then something, what was happening, south.
Garage,
It sounds like you've changed that now.
it hasn't changed, it should, it's been the same.
Yeah, I think what maybe you're responding to is it is not general traffic going
Right.
south out of the building.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, this is very limited
Yeah.
access. You do have the option to turn right and go to Vine from the parking garage, but you also have the choice of going up Wall Street to Spruce and out to Vine or to Park.
And then to your question on wall, I think to what Dan said, what's important there is that the current state behind those businesses is roughly a 7-foot sidewalk, which is actually usable, at times the full 7 feet of that width is usable, depending on the storefront of the business, and at times there's literally 0 inches usable behind some of those businesses. And so, I think at the end of the day, what they are going to get is a full 7-foot sidewalk unbroken, so pedestrians actually have use of that. And then they are also getting essentially a double-loaded, double-sided street, we'll call it, just for nomenclature purposes, where there is now essentially use outside of the driveway on both sides, where that's not the case today. And so it should free up to a degree loading, valet, it frees up and frankly makes safer the pedestrian, interaction engagement on that street, and then gets all of that trash that is essentially sitting on that sidewalk today and gets it out of there and incorporated into our building so that they've got, if not used to kind of spill out, at least fundamental use, at a kind of pedestrian scale for people to move around the perimeter of that.
Where's the drop off for the hotel for check-in?
So it starts here and runs all the way to basically the parking lot entry, so you can
Okay.
drop off, and if you need to, turn and go to one lane, and you'll take it directly into the garage.
Okay, and you've got colors on there. What improvements or what are you doing, anything to Wall Street, that section, and then Spruce Street, not Spruce, the next one to the north there?
Yeah, so this is a gray color, it's not the actual paver color, but it does represent that this zone for Wall Street will be a different paving. It will be a grayer cobble that we're working with the city on through this zone. It then does transition here to a more red and gray mix. It's in the details, you can see how those bricks are being laid out in there. And so those are the two that we're using there. That will actually carry across Spruce Street, and this paver will carry across Wall Street. It will be a concrete sidewalk on the other side of Wall and on the north side of Spruce.
So the pavement on the street itself, on Wall Street, will be pavers?
Correct.
And what color will those be then?
It's a gray here.
The gray.
It's a gray paver, yeah.
Are all 3 streets surrounding this going to be 2-way?
This goes two ways, one way for Vine, yes. So Wall and Spruce will be 2 ways.
And where does the trash go to the businesses across the street?
It goes into a room right here that we were trying to make as large as possible.
So they just park it around.
They're gonna have to cart it around. It is a bit longer for them, but getting it off of the street, I think for them is a big one.
Where does this brick go then, that we're passing around here to look at?
Yeah, so that's the hotel entry in particular.
On the first floor, in other words.
It's on the first floor.
Or Mark, you have the clicker, if you want to back up, we're right next to the rendering, which we can see that, where that is exactly. Yeah, so that is this facade.
Yeah, so that's
North wall.
it's the east wall of Wall Street, and it's actually a reused, reclaimed brick. And so.
This is?
That is, yeah.
From Glengarry?
Yep,
And so these are all full weight brick, I mean, that's showing it as a thin brick, but these are full bricks for the base of the building. That's
so the one over here is for the tower itself.
Yeah.
Beyond is
the
the one
this is the tower, is the one that we have facing up there is the main body of the building.
So you would see this reclaimed brick just on this first floor?
Just on-
It's on the first floor here as essentially the storefront to the hotel, and then also wraps significantly into the interior of the hotel.
That's the hotel entry.
Yeah. So that becomes a.
And along the
major
other side as well, then you have that other recessed entry.
Yep.
And it looks like you're using with that brick different bonds as well, like aesthetic.
It's a running bond. There's a bit of almost a kind of a point detail at the corners there, just to give it a little bit of relief. Yeah.
But the point detail is with the same. brick.
Same brick. Yeah.
And then we do run two different bonds up on the main tower itself.
And so the darker brick that's being passed along there is the northeast corner right of the image. Yeah, it's showing there. So that's the, what I'll call the retail space at the corner there. Just to, make it a little heavier and more receptive to kind of receiving the mass of the brick above, delineating and highlighting that pit again, that kind of fit that green.
This is the same thing, but of both Roman sides.
So that one's Roman, and that, just kind of soften it a little bit, give a little bit more variety, and then also we have a kind of a weird module there that works better with the Romans, we don't have a ton of cut.
Do you know?
Fire, yeah. So that is the screening for the garage, which you see with the scallop light above. It's not in that color though, so I want to be clear about that. That is the profile.
So this is what you see underneath this canopy. You see that that's actually plastic, not wood.
It is a metal wood. We just on any part, right? We run putting actual wood onto the building is just not possible. But given this is almost 30 feet up in the air, we believe in the texture and colors that we can get on this, give us the effect and the warmth that we want. I wish we could do it. Just not.
Why do you say it's not possible?
High rise code just doesn't allow
Oh, really?
for a combustible material like that.
I see, okay, thank you. I'm sorry, we're jumping all around here. Not by design, but
I had asked last time about the city truck.
Yeah, they're here.
So, yeah, just tell us, everything's gonna be okay?
I don't think we swore him in. Do we need to do that or not? Really?
I've been in the back, I wasn't sworn in.
Would you swear and affirm the testimony you're about to give us the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so I do. And would you identify yourself, please?
I'm Matthew Lorenz, I'm with the Division of Design and Construction. I'm the project manager that will be overseeing the streetscape project from the city's perspective, which surrounds the site, right? So that'll include Spruce Street, Vine Street, Wall Street, and Park Street. We're currently in design on a utility relocation package within those same general limits and extending over to the west of Park Street to kind of get ready for this project. So.
Any questions for traffic?
Yeah, what I'm interested in is traffic analysis.
Yeah.
So you look at the volume of traffic, the turning radiuses.
Correct. Well, we looked at the, we did a traffic analysis based on the conceptual plans for the tower. And we took that through. It was reviewed by the Division of Traffic Management. They made the recommendations, and that will be incorporated into the streetscape project when it does come. So that whatever we agree to with working with the development and coordinating with them will be in line with what the traffic study says and will be approved by the Division of Traffic Management. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
Is every one of the high street frontage retail Barley's, and we got the positive letter from, is there any resistance from any of the property owners or business owners related to the usage of the garbage facility?
We've been negotiating a number of things, mainly around the loading, was one of the concerns of how to deal with larger trucks coming in. That was one with Barley's that we worked out, a good solution. That was probably the biggest hang up that I believe we worked through.
So now everything's smooth?
Yep.
Yeah, but, you know, I think, it was a total, other than the Barley's person, 2 or 3 folks that came and for us.
That is, I see. Yeah.
And they're not here today. Maybe should we assume they are fine now?
Yeah, we've been having ongoing meetings with the city Department of Public Service and those adjacent landowners who issued those concerns. Our latest meeting was on Monday this week. We have a written kind of letter of understanding with those folks and as of yesterday, which is what we've come to agreement on. I've gotten everybody comfortable over the last 4 months, and so that's why everybody's gotten comfortable, and we're continuing to work with the Department of Public Service on that.
What's driving the decision to go from that cobble from the North Market facility across the street, and then you hit the curb and it jumps the concrete sidewalk? So it seems sort of inconsistent between sort of what Barley's is happening and then over to where our project is.
I think it's a combination of, as you come up and around, the rest of that block is a concrete curb. So making that transition, and for us, keeping the continuity of that block as concrete was where we worked with that. Also around the site, and again, north of Spruce is all concrete curb, so it is a consistent.
You don't read that as a block when you're on there. You read it as a street. So when you're like looking across, you kind of see that difference between the two sides.
You will, there's a little more kind of granular detail to it than that though, where if you're, let's just say at the back of Barley's, just kind of working through it as a section, it is a standard city concrete sidewalk and then a city standard granite curb. That granite is, there's a little bit of contrast per request from the city, but in the kind of same tonal family as the paver itself. And then that is a standard, 6-inch curb. And then the street section itself is graded such that at the hotel side, it is a rolled curb. It's effectively curbless. So there's, it's not like you get to this point, it's the same curb, it's just a different material. There is kind of a gradient of use that is a little bit different in terms of how the details shake out too. And then I don't want to speak out of turn. I do think part of that was, one point there was concern, Ben, correct me if I'm wrong, please, about having that kind of specialty material on the backside of the
Maintenance and things like that, and have to replace it.
There was some discomfort from those landowners.
And you can see here that overall rendering and that at the hotel entry here, the bollards and the curbless entry as it comes in.
Were there be granite curbs on Spruce Street also?
Standard, yeah.
Yeah, and I appreciate what you're saying too, Tony. And I'm thinking about some of that is connected to the downtown streetscape standards, and then yet it transitions into this really customized, unique space here too. So I kind of see both arguments there, but you got to find that right point to transition.
And that's
the granite curb might be a reasonable way to do that.
So all the materials for the streetscape, being the curb, being the pavers, being the sidewalk materials, are going to be subject to the city scope of improvements.
Right.
That means it has to meet the Department of Public Service standards and requirements. If we do any kind of specialty material, like the granite cobbles that are being discussed, that will require a maintenance agreement with the maintaining agency, being RDHD, saying that they're going to take care of all that pavement, all those cobbles, repair any of them that become damaged. If a utility comes in and cuts it and removes the cobbles and throw them away, the city's not going to come and replace that. It's going to be on maintenance. So that all figures into it, and it has to fall in line with not only the approvals of public service, but in line with the downtown commission and the downtown streetscape standards that was adopted by council. So as part of that, and as we get to that point that we get those final materials that go into the scope of improvements and go into the plans, we'll probably come back to the commission and say, hey, this is what we're doing. This is what the Department of Public Service agreed upon with the property owner or the maintenance agency that's going to be taking care of it, and how it will look, not just surrounding their site, but how it will look on Park Street, how it will look on Vine Street, as it abuts the North Market, how it, all this, how this all figures together.
So if we do an approval today, is it okay to come, say you folks come back on this when you've got the final plans on them?
Right, and the city can do that. The city can come back and represent the streetscape, as we've done on other projects, when we've done downtown streets.
But who's building, are these folks?
So that will be a City of Columbus project.
Okay, so you guys can come back.
Correct.
Does that work for everybody then? Are we all set on that?
Yeah.
Okay, what else do
Yeah.
we want to, what else do we need to talk through on this? Anything? Folks? What's your thought? Go ahead, Janet, please.
Two quick things. From the entry of the hotel, if somebody's standing there, maybe waiting for an Uber or something, what do you know, like exactly what they're going to see? Because I know that, like we talked about on Wall Street, you have some businesses that have an awning and have some entry, and then you have others that will of course be cleaned up, but they really are essentially the back, and maybe there's really not much to see. But I'm wondering from where that entry is and
So
what you see right across the
They're
street.
on the west side of the buildings that run along High Street.
yeah, so we represent.
And they don't own those buildings, and so hopefully those folks clean it up over time, and it is what it is, I guess.
And I think that's gonna be part of the character. I actually think with the cleanup we did, the renderings we did, that's at the very end of the package, we did kind of a before and then an after, once the new paving comes in, the power lines go away, like it just that alone cleans that up. To where they're old historic facades and each storefront.
And the street will be very.
It's actually.
And the sidewalk on the other side is cleaned up and the dumpsters. I think what you're talking about in itself is enormous.
Several of those over the last couple of years have already improved the backside.
Good,
So they beat us to the punch a little bit, and so I think there should be every hope that others will follow us.
Okay, other questions then? Anything else we want to chat about?
Big project.
What's everybody think? Any thought? What's the consensus here? Somebody want to make a motion?
I make a motion to approve.
Okay, there's a motion to approve, and there's a second from Mike Lusk. I don't want to cut off questions or conversations. Anything else? Any other comments, questions? Did we miss anything, Tim?
Is there anything from the audience?
I'm going to ask from
Okay.
the audience. I'm just checking with the commission first. Anybody in the audience have anything? Okay,
Before we vote,
yep, go ahead.
why don't we stipulate that we'll condition the approval on aligning with HRC's?
Yeah, that seems.
Okay,
Yeah, we could add that.
okay. Does that work for everybody? So we'll add that, and the second allows the addition of that provision. Okay, so we have a motion. Any other questions, comments from anybody? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Thank you very much. Okay, and we have an abstention here then. Louis, thank you. Okay, thanks, folks. And again, thank you from the city. We appreciate your input here. I think it's good. I feel good about it. I think it's been coordinated and a lot of moving parts.
We're excited.
Okay.
Chair.
Yes.
Means that you correct.
Oh, help yourself. Take your time.
So, the next case, is here near the North Bank Park. We're talking about 2 pump stations. We discussed this about a year ago. At one point in time, they were proposing to build 2 pump stations inside North Bank Park. They have since modified their proposal to put one of the pump stations right here. They've been working with planning and other city agencies to put one pump station here, to the west of the AEP building. Another pump station here to the west of the railroad line. So to get them out to the North Bank, originally planned for putting a driveway to the structure of the park. So they have been working with us. So the two pump stations will be between Long and Spring. They were, like I said, they were. The pumps will improve the stormwater conveyance system in the area to the west of the Arena District and bring the area into compliance with the city's stormwater drainage manual. So the commission stresses compatibility with surroundings and creative solutions to any specific, site-specific issues. Landscaping and utility of service areas should be compatible with nearby contributing properties, open space, and the overall environment. Screening such as landscaping and fencing should be used to buffer adjacent uses from industrial activity, including loading areas and vehicular circulation areas, which this project does include. So the location of the pumps is an improvement over their previously planned locations. Additional information in the way of landscaping, lighting, screening, and site design will help determine whether they meet the guidelines. It's conceptual at this point, so we just don't have enough to really sink our teeth into. I did make a site visit. So this is looking south. This is the eastern, where the eastern pump station will be, correct me if I'm wrong, and there will be a drive to access this pump station. And this is the view from the south.
So will it be up on that ridge there? The ridge will remain, so it'll be up above street level, is that the idea?
No, it will be at street level. The entryway will be at.
No, I don't mean the entry. I mean the building itself.
The building itself will be back here on this side.
Oh,
We
towards
have
this
to
area.
render a map that will show where that goes in.
Okay.
So this would be the eastern location. And this would be the western location. You can see it's just to the west of the railroad lines at this parcel of land right here. And with that.
Great. Would you folks identify yourselves for the record, please?
I'm Josh Brooks with MS Consultants. We're the
Okay.
engineer.
I'm Grace McInerney. I represent the city of Columbus. I'm a project manager and engineer for the sewers and drainage department.
Great. Would you folks raise your right hands? Do you swear and affirm the testimony you're about to give us the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So say I do.
I do.
Thanks very much.
I'm sorry, I missed that. Can you repeat your name?
Grace McInerney.
Okay, very good. Well, let's go ahead and walk through it here.
Sure. The city currently has 3 stormwater pump stations along the river for flood control. They're currently undersized and at the end of their expected useful life. They're also not accessible during a flood event greater than a 25-year river stage at the side of the river. So the idea behind this project was to improve the capacity of the stormwater drainage system, provide flood mitigation for the underpass, the railroad underpasses on Long, Spring, and Nationwide in the project area, and get the stations in a place where they can be accessed during a flood event. So between.
Does that mean you actually want them a little higher than above the street level? Is that
We do.
correct?
Long Street will flood when the river gets to a certain stage. So having them south of Long Street makes them inaccessible. So we wanted them between Long and Spring.
Gotcha.
And above the 100-year flood elevation. So right now they're currently, that's why if you see go through the that's why it's perched up on that site. This is a rendering we put together for AEP. This is on actual piece of land owned by AEP that we get approved.
So you're going to build this retaining wall around it then?
Yes, we have to have, it has to be above the 100-year flood elevation.
And, okay, and then well, how close to the street will it be, actually? I had a hard time seeing these drawings.
What's the middle? Okay. So, 25 feet to the building.
So to be, you mean from the curb there?
From the curb,
Now,
yeah.
that would be on Long Street then, right?
That's for Long Street, yes.
That's pretty close. And you're saying for the building, and you've got this retaining wall sticking out in front of it then, right?
Yeah, there's,
So how far is the retaining wall then?
there's 5 feet between the retaining wall and the building.
So 20 feet, that's pretty close.
So this is the building right here.
Correct.
No,
That's the
no.
pump station. The hatch
building's
area
the
where
dark
it's
thing here.
723.
This here. Yep.
Yes, that would be the above ground structure.
Oh, I see. And then, well, so what's,
So actually, that's a bit farther away from the street to the building.
So how far, or I mean, what material will the retaining wall?
We can build it out of, whatever you want to see there. Right now, we're just in preliminary design. We haven't gone through and done detailed design of these stations for the sites. This is preliminarily, how they'll be laid out. But as far as building materials, landscaping, screening, we can do, whatever you guys want.
What are you proposing for the fencing around it then? It looks like a metal fence.
Yeah, it's the fencing we can do, I mean, any kind of fencing. Is that preference.
And it looks like the building itself, you're trying to have match the building there at the end of Neal Avenue.
We set those up to try and match the architecture within North Bank Park.
Yeah.
Is what the idea was behind that.
Is this a preliminary?
It is.
Yes,
It is.
this is conceptual, so we're talking.
We didn't want to go too far on the sites until.
I'll tell you what, thank you very much. We appreciate that. Yeah.
So where the retaining wall is and, inside the fence, is that something that is predominantly going to be paved? Or are you going to keep that more of soil so that there can be plantings or a combination of both?
Combination of both, but yeah, there will be plantings and area for landscaping and screening that we can incorporate into it.
That's a generator.
But you're not gonna
That is
see
generate the grade.
how it's the height of the wall there.
Yeah, that's the standby generator for backup power. That wall,
We switch back.
7 feet.
So you're really not gonna see whatever the surface area is.
Yeah, not from the street level.
Area.
Not from street level, no.
You know,
This is the east pump station where, next to AEP.
This one will have an access drive, you can see spring.
Yeah,
where is that? Oh, it's not showing on the drawing.
Oh, it's right here.
Oh, I see it. Okay.
Let me rotate this so you can see it.
I've got my directions on this thing.
It's
This
like,
thing,
it'll be
left is to the right, west is to the top, and on
here's long.
here we've switched it.
Yeah.
This is how it'll look. Here's the AP building. There'll be a long drive to this. And then the other site won't. The other site will just park on the street.
Correct. Yeah, we've been through several iterations of these site plans. We started out with meetings with sewer maintenance to see what they wanted, as on the site for access and maintenance, so they could maintain them. The sites just got too big, and we couldn't fit them on these other parcels, the one next to AEP and the one on the other side of the tracks. So we shifted the conversation from what would you guys want to what do you guys need to be able to access these for maintenance. And that's where we're able to shrink the size of the sites and get them on these different parcels. Because of that, and kind of tighten them up. One thing we had to do with particularly the west station is slide them closer to Spring Street so that they wouldn't need access for a Vector truck to clean out the wet well and trash rack. The east pump station, we couldn't get it close enough to Long Street because the Franklin Main 60-inch sanitary sewer is right there. So we had to kind of be back away from that. That's why we have to have a drive.
Does that also have a retaining wall around it?
That one will, yes.
Same height, roughly 7-ish?
Roughly, yeah. Yeah. It varies on that site because it's on the slope.
I'm almost wondering that if the most important thing on this, in a way, is not the building, and the building is unconnected in a way from the park to me. But what you're really going to see, and what can really make a statement, is this retaining wall. I don't much rather see. That'd be very well done, and stick the money into that kind of thing. Even if the pump station itself turned into a black box with a flat roof, as opposed to trying to, or to be, I know he doesn't like black anymore, but, or brick or whatever, but it doesn't, I don't think we have to make an architectural statement from my standpoint out of that. But I do think this retaining wall is going to be something It's going to be very visual. And in both of these cases, and you know, if maybe there were some planting at the base of it, and I really congratulate you for a nice fence instead of, you know, these galvanized, you know, chain link fence kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I think, from my standpoint, I think anybody else have any?
I think this is a great
Thoughts?
improvement of putting them, but I think that, yeah, you're the landscape architect on your team.
Mhm.
Because it's still part of one of our premier parks, right? I mean, it's not a ball field or something, right? But it's still part of that whole string of long entry. And I think that the detailing, retaining wall, detailing the fence, consideration of screening the generators, things like that, is really, really important. We don't know anything about the engineering part of it, but sure it's all necessary, but I think that the detailing of how looks like there's a stairway.
Yeah.
It just has to be right.
Sure,
And you
absolutely.
indicated a willingness to do that, but I really think, I'm friends to engineers, but I think you ought to have a good landscape architect on your team.
We do. We added that in for detailed design, landscape plans, and we've got an LA on board to do those.
Now, I think that'll make a difference for us, the detail. Things, and they seem located at the right spot.
I agree, this is much better than trying to put it there. But this is an entry to downtown from the west. This is an important entry. I think in a way, frankly, you're going to be going down Long Street. I don't know how much you'll see it. It'll just be there. It fits into that landscaped area there around the west side of the AEP building, but which is actually a nice green spot. And so if that kind of remains as a nice green spot, that's a good and big thing too, I think.
Now, the western building will be visible.
It will be. It's going to be perched up there, but yeah, you will see it. You'll see both.
But for example,
That's a real
if so, what you see right now is a kind of an embankment with a bunch of trees on it.
Right.
If you were all done and it were there, and now you've kind of replaced, if you have to do it, an embankment of a bunch of trees, that would probably be really good.
Yeah.
You know, so it grows in. In other words, it's almost concealing. Not that it has to go away, but at least it doesn't, you know, it's not in your face, in other words.
Right.
And by the way, with that improvement there, it's nice what was done, so. Any other thoughts on this, or, I mean, does this make sense? Anybody else have any other thoughts?
I agree with that. I think, of course, you want the new building to look, you know, nice. I mean, it doesn't have to look terrible, but I do think that putting the effort and the money into the landscaping and into the material of the retaining wall and the texture and the fencing is really what people are going to see and is really what's going to, you know, enhance and the whole park area. So I think that would be a great way to put your resources.
I think you said it in a whisper, Ted, but I want to amplify what your whisper was, is that, I mean, that really is the gateway to the downtown. And I think we ought to treat it that way. I think that we ought to really think about what needs to happen there. Because that's really the turn into the state, you know, to the new stadium.
Yeah.
It's, you know, you're being bookended by the railroad tracks. It's a focal point going down, you know, 33 for a while. So I think it's really important as to what we do there.
And I think the inclination to make it all compact and I understand that it's sort of a vertex, but on this one, I guess I'd encourage you to think that if there's a piece of retaining wall that actually comes out further and is very intentional and kind of sweeps its way into downtown and you bring trees in that help, I wouldn't be afraid to kind of look at that as a bigger landscape opportunity.
Design element.
Yeah.
It'd be nice if it was a dry laid up stone retaining.
Yeah, something.
It's almost like build up to.
Yeah, yeah.
Create a layer.
Like stacked fruit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. look at the whole space.
Like the last thing we
Right.
want to see is just this thing sticking up.
Oh, I'm with you. Yeah. I go to a lot of crew games and that's, you
Yeah.
know, that's,
And that's it. I mean, you're looking at that for a while as you're going down the road.
Right, right.
Okay,
Great.
really appreciate your coming in.
thank you for having me.
Thanks. Yeah, we'll look forward to seeing you when you back.
You'll come back with a nice looking landscape.
I'm sure you will. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, think of it as a landscape project, not an engineering project.
Yeah.
Okay, very good.
With the drainage, the work.
Oh, yeah.
Well, they'll handle that one, that part of it, I'm not worried.
Yeah.
Okay,
Next case is at 266 East Main Street. J.C. Arms Apartment, this large property between Main and Rich. So the applicant is seeking conceptual review of a proposal to redevelop a major portion of a city block. In anticipation of this development, the single parcel block underwent 2 staff-approved lot splits in 2020. Plan for the southern lot calls for 2 5-story mixed-use structures with 120 workforce housing units and ground floor commercial fronting on East Main Street. On the western lot, a 5-story mixed-use building will contain market rate units and a culinary educational facility. J.C. Arms building will not be modified and its current drive will remain. To the south, supplemental information document was included. So our analysis of the guidelines, these have already been mentioned at this meeting, so I'll not go over them again. In summary, the proposal meets the guidelines goals of reducing surface parking downtown. The planning division has encouraged the applicant to consider additional height at this location.
okay, very good. Hello? Could you identify yourselves for the record, please?
Sure, I'm George Berardi, Partners.
I'm Alita Springer. I work at Berardi Partners.
Great. Would you folks raise your right hands? Do you swear?
One more, there are members of the development team behind us as well.
Oh, great, great. Anybody that might testify today, you can raise your right hand as well. Great. Do you all swear and affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So say I do.
I do.
Thank you.
Well, I think that Louis pretty much summarized everything. If you want me to go ahead, right?
Absolutely, you on it.
I think that what Louis said and what the application was all about pretty much identifies what the intent here is. Obviously, this is a conceptual review. So we want to discuss really, the concept, first of all, the intended uses and obviously at the point design. As you can see from the original site, as Louis mentioned, parcels were separated from J.C. Arms. J.C. Arms, by the way, is the lead that formed NCJC Development Corporation to develop this property. So there are several parcels that have been identified by one of the exhibits, which show the parcels to the south, which is roughly 1.7 acres, the 2 parcels where the 5-story buildings sit. And then there's another portion of the site that was separated out as a separate legal entity immediately adjacent to the west of the NCJC or the J.C. Arms building. The intent is to really populate this entire city block rather than just one building at a time. The project will be seeking not historic tax credits, but housing tax credits in February. And it's probably, the likelihood is probably that it'll be developed in phases, but we want to have approval for the entire development or at some point down the road for the entire thing, including the property to the north. It's also entirely possible, by the way, that funding cycles are, and funding is for housing tax credits, that it may be developed at some point as a single development for the 120 units facing Main Street. So Main Street will be activated with workforce housing, primarily workforce housing, based on that definition from Ohio Housing Finance Agency, which is a little different than your last case, which is a higher end workforce housing. This is probably a workforce housing that's going to strike somewhere a chord between 50% to 80% AMI as far as income limits are prescribed. So the two buildings to the south, again, are intended to be workforce housing funded by housing tax credits. I keep saying historic. The building to the north, on the other hand, will be funded directly by the NCJC Corporation, again, a subsidiary from the JCR.
And that's the one showing on the left there? the
Yes,
building?
top left, exactly.
Okay, thank you.
And that building is intended to really support some of the functions for the JC Arms. And to be specific, the lower level will be developed for additional community space, which is lacking in the building for when it was built. So that's going to be a direct support. First and second floor, because of arrangements that have been made with both Columbus State and city schools, Columbus City Schools, there's an interest in developing some expansion of culinary facilities at both of those facilities in this location. For training more than anything, not to where we would have full kitchens necessarily brought in here, but training of other aspects of culinary services. So that would be floors 2 and 3. Above that would be 3 stories at this point of market rate housing. I think it comes down to somewhere between 18 and 20 dwelling units, largely 1 and 2 bedroom units, limited actually to 1 and 2 bedroom units, but that would be strictly market rate housing. So moving back, let's hold that last slide for a second. Now, this is the one that shows really how this parcels, as Louis was mentioned, have been realigned, redefined. The green is the portion that would be the element that would be tied with city schools and Columbus State. The blue at the bottom would be more of the workforce housing, the 5-story buildings.
And those would be totally apartment units?
Yes, totally apartment unit. Well, no.
So the culinary function is on the upper left-hand corner?
Yes, yes. There is, at the lower end, activating Main Street was one of the goals, and by activating, I mean that we're actually going to be including a certain square footage there of commercial space, whether it's retail or other commercial, it could be small offices. And between the two buildings, it's fairly substantial space, but lobbies will be located in those areas, entrance points. The one key element here is what you're seeing here is a view directly north to JC Arms. And that driveway does exist right now. We're retaining that driveway. The one thing that happens is that the entire site of NCJC, or JC Arms, will be redeveloped. In other words, the parking that exists in the back will be redeveloped. There's also an access point from South Fifth. So we'll be maintaining both that access point and the south point that exists right now, going north to Main Street. So you'll see what you're looking at in that last plan was the actual parking rearrangement. There is more parking right now than is really necessary for this entire property, especially given the elderly population that exists with JC Arms. So what we're doing is we're reducing it to a certain extent, providing, I believe it's somewhere around 75 or 80 parking spaces at the end of the day. By the way, I'm a little nervous about being specific about number of parking spaces until we have a firm final engineering plan. But somewhere in that order, that will be provided as parking spaces for the JC Arms. The parking to the south will be provided internal to the building. So effectively, those two buildings are podium buildings, and we're providing approximately 48 spaces. Again, approximately only until we get to a final design point. So those will be secure internal spaces for the residential buildings that are proposed. The purple that you see on the bottom of the sheet, again, is that area that activates Main Street with commercial and retail spaces. And you'll see some other support areas, with the building at that location. What happens with please, sorry.
That driveway to get back to the old JCR building.
That stays, that exists. We're going to retain that entire drive block.
Separate parcels, so if they were to be sold separately, that building could become
Go to the site plan, please. In other words, the piece that's down at the bottom, the roadway that comes from Main Street, that'll be maintained
Yeah.
as a distinct easement in perpetuity for JCR.
That's what I was asking.
Yeah, exactly. And what it also does, Bob, it also provides access points for our two buildings to where there's entrance to the garages off of that driveway.
Yeah, okay.
But there will be an easement in perpetuity. Again, I appreciate asking the question. So, again, the buildings, if you go to podium level, the intent is that this is a podium building, of course, but obviously there isn't a great deal of public open space at grade level available to us at this point, other than, maintain parking. So what we've done is with podium level, we're really populating podium level. So we'll have some public amenity spaces at each of the buildings. At the core area of the building, and it's ideal at the core because it's the least efficient part of any L-shaped building anyway. So what we're doing is we're populating the podium with some amenity spaces. Now, let me point out, the unit mix in these buildings will largely be one-bedroom units. Because of the funding requirements, there are some two-bedroom units, but also we have a 5% requirement for three-bedroom units, which also suggests the possibility of small families. But that's only 5 units per building, 4 or 5 units per building. So that isn't very much. Still, we're providing some public access to open areas for the site for use by the residents at that. Again, units are located, on the perimeter, and when both buildings are positioned on the site, they form a U shape, if you will, and it's just simply as that is, it forms a U shape in the middle of the site, both buildings. So they're basically mirrored with one another.
I'm wondering, when I looked at that, I'm wondering if you want to do that. They're symmetrical, and if you're trying to create some kind of a streetscape, I wonder if you want a little modulation and have it broken up, and maybe even a roof line that comes and goes a little bit, because it does, it's just, you got two shapes in this piece here, so.
Yeah, and again, the whole idea, Steve, is to really populate and activate, Main Street. But at the same time, I think that we will have some of that modulation of the building as it goes back and forth. I think that might start to show up with some of the elevation. The other thing that happens is we are stair stepping the buildings down at the edges. So the edges really will be 4 stories rather than 5, as you can see here. So
Yeah, I'm just wondering if it might be more interesting if it's not two mirror images of each other. So that's an aesthetic thing. So I don't know.
Liking that,
the driveway.
Original building.
Yeah. You can imagine. You can imagine that we've tried the 2 Ls like this. We tried.
No. I don't misunderstand you. I think the L-shaped piece, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that.
But we'll modulate the building. Well, the building will move a little bit. The elevation won't be a stark, straight elevation. I think, Steve, that's maybe part of what you're thinking about. But also what we're doing is we're stair stepping the building down at each of the corners.
Yeah.
And you see it at the corners facing Main Street, but what you don't see is it will happen at the back of the building as well. So all the corners will be activated in the sense that those will be public spaces as well for the residents.
How wide is the driveway that goes back there then?
Survey, but it's
just a curiosity. And is there anything on either side of it? I mean, do you have sidewalks along it?
Yeah, there will be sidewalks. Yeah, it's probably going to be.
In other words, does it read as a kind of a thoroughfare, or is it just read like a driveway to go to the back?
No, actually, there's some parallel parking off of it, so it's pretty deep. It's about 45 to 50 feet. The buildings are separated about
so that's
50
pretty good
feet.
size.
Yeah.
I had a thought about that, and it looks like when you were explaining it earlier, that you really need to keep that as a
Yeah, we do.
vehicular access. But I'm wondering, as you develop the project, if there's any way to, let's say maybe with the paving or with other detailing, to make that seem like a plaza or something that has more of a pedestrian feel to it.
Sure.
Or something that is more, integrated into the streetscape.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's enough room, if your intention is, okay, you have cars coming through, but maybe there are bollards and there's an area for people to walk. Because I think it's an opportunity, you're drawing people off of the street and back into the space.
No, I understand. And I think to that point, it's a very good point, actually, because at that point, one of the things we may look at is that opening at Main Street, rather than, starting out at 50 or 60 feet or whatever it turns out to be. Maybe that's a little bit broader to where it narrow necks down
Sounds like
to
a
the
great
drive.
idea.
So really, it's a more inviting approach to it. So I think that's something that we will do.
And maybe because you said you had commercial, maybe the commercial turns
Plaza.
the corner a little bit so that it, there's that illusion that
Yeah.
it's going back and it becomes part of that alley.
Right, and again, I think where you see the opening there is what I'm saying is, do you mind if I just walk up there again?
Right.
Yeah. I think that, what you're saying, and I agree with it, is this area right here. So we could open this up. So it really creates a more inviting opening. There will be sidewalks, there are sidewalks now on either side, they'll be 5 or 6 feet wide, plus the roadway, plus the parking. But I think that if we start opening this up, maybe some of the public spaces that are here, the commercial spaces, could have small open plaza area. We don't know if it would be a small restaurant, especially in view of what we're doing up here. It's entirely possible that there could be some of that function located in one of these areas as well. So I think that maybe smaller open plazas here could really be beneficial. I believe that's what you think.
And I think too, like when Steve was saying, you want to create an experience where there's
Yeah.
character and,
Yeah.
diversity and a uniqueness. And there could be an opportunity with those kind of pieces to create that in your detailing.
Yeah.
And maybe a little variation in the mapping.
Well,
So
and
that-
materiality.
Right, and so you can have both, you can keep the mapping, basic plan, but at that pedestrian level, do that, what we sometimes call the organized chaos.
No.
So to really give it the character and
Yeah.
that it's an urban development over time.
Sure. Terrific. Thanks for your comments.
Just piggyback on that real quick. Hey, George, I was thinking, this would be, on that ground level, then that's parking deck. Both sides.
Under the building.
The podium.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to reinforce that. I think that's an area of detail that I'll be interested to see in the next level is, how do you make that feel comfortable for the pedestrian? It might be the material selections, certainly any landscape we can make happen. I'd say the other thing, actually, and I know you gotta still consider parking here.
Yeah.
How do you make that not just feel wall-to-wall asphalt based on number of parking spots and
Well, we'll have to break it out with islands, and I think.
that's just a detail as you move forward,
Yeah.
a concept that I think will be important.
I think the west building, that corner that you created with the angled window wall is very successful and works really well. And it's very creative. So I really like that a lot. And the culinary, the building that
Yeah.
has culinary school, that.
Yeah, that was,
You talked in the very beginning, you said that is there a commitment from Columbus State and Columbus City Schools, or is there an interest?
there is interest, there have been conversations. I don't think there's a firm, formal commitment.
Right, and so, I understand why being close to the downtown high school,
Mhm.
as well as Mitchell Hall down the street. Let's say for some reason that does not happen. What would you do with that box then? With that space?
I
Or
would
have
ask-
you thought about other commitments for the future?
Yeah, there are possibilities for the commercial spaces there, but, I think that it could go a long way to the conversations that have occurred so far could go quite a long way to making this happen. By the way, just as a point of interest, while the residential buildings facing Main Street are subject to tax credit allocations, there is no tax credit allocation for that building. So
Right.
that building would likely move quickly, whereas we all know the process for tax credit allocations could be a little lengthy.
Mark, I think it's a great idea. I was just asking, was there a true commitment by both of us?
There really isn't a firm format, but in the intent, there have been ongoing conversations for quite a long time, so it's really with hope. But to answer your question, if that were to fail, there would be other opportunities to bring the commercial facilities into the building.
Thank you.
Yep. So, yeah.
It's a great use of space, a big open space that's been there for a long time.
Yeah.
Nice store.
Yeah, and I think, again, the idea goes back to the whole initial comment that even Lewis made, by repopulating this large portion of real estate downtown, completing the block, basically. And I know we've talked about a variety of things here, but I think it really does, and it stands off of High Street by, half a dozen blocks. So I think the massing is appropriate for the site as really we're proposing it. And it certainly becomes, an affordable building to construct at that point.
Okay, other questions, comments? Okay, thank you very much.
Very good, thank you.
What else do we have, Louis? Public art. Oh, yeah.
The final case is going to be at they proposed for the intersection of Gay and High Street. Any visits? Give you an idea of what we're talking about. This is looking east on Gay. We have a locally designated registered building here. Historic building on the south side of the street. This is looking west. We have the Eckelman properties here. Looking north and looking south, so the art piece will be hanging up in this section. And these are the buildings from which the art piece will be. Buildings. Northeast. Southeast. Northwest. Southwest. We're going to be reviewing conceptually, but keep in mind for this proposal, the Downtown Commission will be providing a recommendation to the Columbia Art Commission for art public places. We'll also be in charge of issuing the COA, the actual COA for how it is attached to the building. But there will be modifications in it. So they're seeking conceptual review of a Janet Eckelman designed art sculpture to be suspended above the intersection of Gay and High Streets. It will consist of a structural net supporting free-flowing sculptural fiber. Piece will be anchored to the four buildings at the corner of the intersection. So the guidelines state that public art is a critical component of the built environment and adds much to the city's quality of life. Design of art in public spaces should be influenced by the physical context in terms of composition, scale, mass, materials. Its integration into larger development projects is encouraged. However, works of art should be also designed and installed so as to not damage or visually obscure contributing buildings or building elements. It should be designed with consideration to maintenance and durability. In summary, planning will want to see further details on how the artwork will be attached to the existing buildings. The applicant will be seeking a recommendation of approval from the Downtown Commission regarding the artwork and a COA for the artwork's attachment to the building intersection. That I'll pass it over to the applicant.
Don, would you identify yourself, please, for the record?
Don DeVere with DeVere LLC.
Do you swear and affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Absolutely, I do.
I do. Thank you. Good morning.
Morning.
I'm here on behalf of the partners that own the real estate in the intersection of Gay and Hyde. We have an unusual situation there in that we have four friendly partners that are collaborating to allow for the installation of a very dramatic piece of public artwork at this location.
Do I spell your last name?
Yes, DE_VERE. My partners and I have been active in the Gay Street corridor for many years. And as I think we all know, the Edwards Companies has more recently come to the neighborhood and done some great work with the Citizens Building at the southwest corner, the Nicholas Building at the northwest corner. They're working on a restaurant concept at the northeast corner. And of course, they've taken over the Madison's project, which is under construction right now. So very active in the neighborhood. Jeff Edwards, the principal company, is also an arts patron. And as such, given his interest in public art and development activity in the area, I was very interested in putting forth a very dramatic and significant piece of public art at this location.
Don, could you speak up just a little
Sure.
bit? Maybe
Yeah.
pull the mic up closer. Thanks, appreciate that.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, we have this unique situation that allowed Jeff to pursue this vision whereby partners that own the real estate on all four corners agreed to cooperate to allow the attachment of the sculpture to their respective pieces of real estate. There is a applicant statement and an artist statement in your packet, so I won't bother to read with that, but to read through that. But let me just say a couple words about the artist that was selected. Janet Eckelman is an internationally renowned artist based in Boston. She has been designing and installing sculptures of this nature all around the world for about 20 years. Some of them are temporary in nature, some are more permanent, some above public plazas, some above streets, parks, et cetera, et cetera. There are a handful in the United States, but they are predominantly throughout Europe and Asia. I would encourage you, if you have an interest in it, to visit her website, eckelman.com. Has very dramatic images of these sculptures. You'll see from the site, they are very impactful. They are illuminated at night. They are very dramatic. They're also kinetic in nature. They have a free form so that there's movement with the wind, which adds another dimension to the sculptures. Let's go ahead and, do you control it?
You have a clicker.
I have a clicker. Can I use this clicker?
Yes, you can hear.
Train. Okay. So we spent the weekend with Janet Eckelman, came to town and did research on Central Ohio, was impressed by a number of different things. They exist with the river, the confluence, the Native American mounds she was quite taken with. But in the end, it was these arches that became very inspirational to her. And it was not just the form of the arches themselves. It was really, I think, what she was taken with as she researched it further was the innovation of the arches. Turns out that the original wooden arches were replaced with steel arches, which were later electrified. And apparently, electrification of the arches was fairly innovative in the United States, not only as a form of illumination of the streets, but then later as a structures to hold the electricity for the streetcars, which you see in this image here. So it was the innovation of the arches that I think really Janet took note of and made her think quite a bit about innovative qualities of our town. Another image, this particular image is at Gay and High. And there's in the lower right-hand corner, you can see Steve Whitman crossing the street. Steve, you've done a great job of taking care of yourself.
I don't run down that whole guy.
You just lost one vote.
But I've gained a bunch of others. So she started playing around with the form of the arch. For a while, we looked at doing an inverted arch. Let's talk a little bit about the intersection here and the orientation of the sculpture. I think we all know the Gay Street corridor has really come to life over the last 20 years. And with that in mind and the potential connection to the river and the park, the orientation quickly became east-west rather than north-south along High Street.
I'm sorry, say that again, John? The last thing?
The orientation of the sculpture, as you can see here.
Is east-west, yeah.
East-west, yeah.
And so why did that come about?
I think
I was wondering about that.
Yeah, I think well, first of all, that's the orientation of the arches that were inspiration for the sculpture, but also concept is to better connect the river, the activity of the riverfront park with the core of downtown.
Will it read arch if you're going north or south on High Street?
Yes, in an abstracted way, and some of the images later, you'll get a sense of that.
By the way, when we're looking at this, is this literally what she would do? Or is this just hypothetical? Because it's just a series of shapes.
You're going to see a literal representation.
So in other words, sometime along the line, you come and if we approve that, that's what she's going to do, right?
Yeah, this isn't a particularly good image of it, but yes, some of the later images are fairly accurate, yes. I've been kind of shepherding this project for the last year and a half, and though it looks fairly simple, unbelievably complex, unbelievably difficult.
What are the cables?
The cables are made out of well, they're not cables, they're ropes. It's made out of a space age material. I don't even know what it is. I can't describe it to you. Very high tech. And then the sculptural material, which hangs from the structural net, is a nylon fiber, braided nylon fiber.
Now, by the way, does it catch birds in it?
No, and I cannot tell you exactly why that is. I can make some assumptions, but as mentioned, and I jump ahead a little bit.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to.
No, that's all right. That's all right. It's a good question. And one of the greatest things about selection of Janet Eckelman is this is a tried and true form. The method has been installed throughout Europe, as I mentioned. Anyways, to get to your question, there has not been a bird problem. I don't know why, but birds stay clear of it. Somebody said if it catches pigeons, that'd be okay, but all other birds.
Except you got to climb up there and pull them out. So.
Long poker. Looking east on Gay Street, High Street looking south. These images don't really represent the vibrancy of the material very well, but they give you a good sense of the form, and there you can start to see the arch that's created there. A lot of folds.
So what you're seeing on the left is where it goes back between the buildings, I guess east on Gay Street.
Correct, east and west. Yeah.
Is this what it looks like at daytime then?
Yeah, these are daytime images. So the artistic, the sculptural material is a colored fiber, vibrantly colored fiber. Primarily in this case, blue and red. Red representing masonry construction in our city, the predominance of brick. The blue referencing the city, the river, which is actually brown, but you know, artistic license there.
Are the ropes that attach to the buildings, is that the same material throughout the sculpture? The rope is the same that is holding together the mesh as well? Or are they different material? Are they different materials?
The ropes in this image, for example, the white line at the top is part of the structural net system. And that rope material, which attaches to the buildings, is the same material throughout the entire structural system.
Okay.
So that web, that white outline web, is all the same material. The colored material, which is actually connected to the structural system, is a lighter weight material, and it has.
I was asking because I think this is very good where the actual connections are really integrated in the sculpture. They're part of it. It's not like there's a sculpture and then there's some other there's some other ropes that have nothing to do with the sculpture that are holding it, but it's designed. It's designed together.
Yeah, that's right. They're actually braided onto the sculptural net is actually braided on a hand onto the structural net, so it's integrated pretty well.
Don, it looks like there are many attachments to the building, which is one of the things we need to look at, but also you said it was lit.
On the light fixtures on the buildings or are they in the ground or what, how is it?
Yeah, I didn't want to overload you with information today at a conceptual state, but what I would plan on doing next month is bring back a detailed package to answer both your questions, which is the structural attachments to the rooftops of the 4 buildings, which we have CDs of those actually. So they're very well defined, as well as the comprehensive lighting plan as well. The lighting is attached to the buildings. We've tried to find the most discrete locations possible. Some are more discrete than others, but, and we found the lighting possibilities are amazing now with the fixture specifications, but fairly small fixtures to try to make them as concealed as possible. So we'll see that in more detail next month.
Will you have samples of the material?
I could get it. I don't have any, but I can get that. I will bring that with me.
It looks very transparent. Certainly you have an issue with wind. Is it such that the wind goes through it or?
Yeah, it's very transparent. It's almost like fishnet material. I think it's the closest comparison. So wind does go through it, but it is free flowing, so it moves around a bit. But it's been designed to withstand high wind conditions. We actually hired a sub-consultant from Canada that has a wind tunnel to do wind tunnel studies. So it's been thoroughly vetted.
And you said these are elsewhere in the world, then, right? Where, so tell us, and this is a park. What we are proposing is in a street situation. Are there other ones over streets?
Yeah. One at
You have any pictures? Where?
Porto, Portugal. That's been installed over a street for 16 years, I believe.
I was going to ask about maintenance and so on.
Is this permanent or is this a?
It's a permanent sculpture, but it is seasonal. We'll have to take it down every winter and reinstall it in the spring.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, no kidding. Why is that? Ice and snow?
Ice, not snow. Snow's fine. Snow will penetrate because it's an open material, but ice accumulation is problematic.
So what, tell us about the, now do the lines and everything there, the ropes stay up when you take down the netting? The whole thing?
Yeah.
Does the color come from the material? Or does color come from the lighting? I mean, do you light it with red lights?
Both. The material is colored and the lights will be colored as well.
So the only example of being on a street is important.
No, there are others. In fact, I included in the packet a list of other street installations.
You know, I'm looking at the packet and I don't see any of that. So did you send out a new packet?
Did I miss that? I didn't. Okay, I'll send it to you.
Can you send that? And then Louis, can you send it to all of us? Because I'm not seeing some of the stuff. Like I didn't see her statement, for example.
Oh, you know what? I realized what was included in the submission to the city, to the right-of-way manager.
That's fine, no problem. Why don't you send it to Louis and Louis can send it around?
Yeah.
Because everybody wants to look at that.
There's one one comes to mind in the United States in Santa Monica.
Well, I think it'd be fun if we could see some of those. Does everybody say again? Yeah.
Santa Monica, pretty nice.
Oh, there they are. Now, those don't look like they're in the middle of the city. They're outside.
There's one in the middle of London. It's one of the busiest intersections in London.
That's
Shows the
one right now, yeah.
Yeah, that's also.
Well, that was in the roundabout.
Where in London is in,
Yeah,
it's over a street then?
Yes. It's impressive. It's a Piccadilly Circle, maybe. Similar setup there with 4 buildings. And you can see at night, it's just floating.
Yeah.
So you can't see any of the structure. So it's just a floating image at night. It's really powerful.
So who put it in London? Was that a private developer or was that
And actually, the city owned those buildings.
the Queen?
Mhm.
Did she put it up?
She did. There.
You take it down.
Hey, now, I would like to remind the applicant that he is under oath. So let's not get too carried
I
away.
rescind my former comment.
Yes, do we have a comment from the back?
I believe there's one over in Sampson.
Okay.
That's over the street, because I looked at this and heard it.
Oh, okay.
That's how I'm going. We got similar to a
Mhm.
here. So a public street that's open, buses go under it, people walk.
Right.
et cetera, et cetera.
So by the way, just while we're getting into that, do we think we have any problems here from your standpoint at this point?
I review it from certain aspects. It's going through the right of way manager right now, Jerry Reiser. He's collecting comments throughout the city and writing the facts for them.
Is it easy? I know you said it's seasonal. Is it easy to dismount and store? It looks like because of the nature of it, it would fold down it would be easy to store it.
Yeah, I think the storage is fairly easy. It stores in a crate apparently. And like you said, it becomes pretty compact when it's taken down. The installation and deinstallation process is not, I wouldn't describe it as easy though. There are going to be lifts and cranes involved. It'll be an overnight thing. My understanding at this point is it'll be somewhere in the range of 6 to 8 hours for the street about to be closed for that process to occur.
And their lifespan is about it seems like it would be at least 20 years because it seems that there's one that is 16 years old.
Yeah, my understanding is that the only thing that really affects the lifespan is UV degradation of the color of the stick material, the sculptural material. So I think what's happened in other cases is that the sculptural net has been replaced maybe after 7 or 8 years because of the color getting washed out, UV.
Is that difficult to do? Because that would have to be, would you say
braided.
it's woven into the ropes?
Yeah, I'm sure it's quite involved to do that.
When it goes back up, is it exactly the same then?
Exactly the same.
Okay, so, I know, I was gonna ask about the attachments here, and I know you don't have your dog and pony show for the attachments here for us today, but how does that happen? Is it behind parapet walls? Virtually all these buildings have parapet walls. Is it on the face of the buildings? Is it on the roof? Is it behind and lifted over how do you?
Yeah, let me run through the 4 attachment points here. Starting in the upper left-hand corner, that's the Nicholas building. That would be an attachment at the roof. The attachment point will be just behind the parapet.
So all you'll see is a line coming out over the parapet.
In each case, except for the Citizens Building, which is the bottom left corner there. In that case, because of the parapet height, we have to have a small section of steel projecting over top of the parapet. So if you were to look up there, you would notice a small section of steel for those 2 connection points. But to answer your question, all of the attachment points are at the roof level.
Go to the next page. 15, 14.
And at the bottom, how far? 32 feet above the street, huh? And that's puts it above the light poles?
I think. Yeah, I think it's close to 40.
Almost 40. Well, I see 30. Oh, I see. That's right. Yes, gotcha. Okay. I think what we're here, this is a conceptual. So let's get a reaction from everybody because that's really what he's here for today. What are your thoughts here, folks? So we have one cool, one.
That's good. Exciting.
There are 2 cools.
Brings vibrancy, particularly to that corner.
A vibrancy.
I'm really impressed that the artist came here and that this is, she developed this based off of something personal to Columbus. I thought it would be more that, this is just something that didn't have a connection. So I think that really makes it unusual.
Yes, that's her mode of operation. When she does this, she takes inspiration from local conditions, local history. Said the reference to water, that the title of the sculpture, Current Well, refers to the current of the river, but the current of electricity running through the arches, the currency of Columbus as an innovative, forward-looking city. So you're right that she took local conditions into consideration in inspiring form. sculpture.
Is there any concern, I know you mentioned that after 7 or 8 years, sometimes there's fading, so that the mesh would have to be replaced. And would that be very expensive? Because it seems like that would be a large portion of the sculpture. So would that almost be like paying for the sculpture all over again?
Not quite. I'm sure it will be costly, but much of the expense of the sculpture really is in the design process. It's been significant, not only the artist's fee, but the consultants involved in designing the structural net, the structural modifications to the 4 buildings. A lot of cost there. So the replacement of the sculptural net itself is really only a small part of that total cost.
So let's think about that. How do you do this? I mean, structurally, literally, how do you know that this thing will stay up so it doesn't just plop down on somebody and cause a traffic accident?
Yeah, so there's 2 structural teams engaged in the design of the sculpture. The first team is SOM, their structural design department based in San Francisco, which has designed maybe 6 or 8 of her sculptures throughout the country. So there's a history there throughout the world. So they were charged with designing the net, the structural net itself. Time tested, no failure in the history of her work. The local firm of SMBH, in consultation with SOM, designed all the structural modifications required to the buildings. And they are substantial, far greater than we had expected. Because in each case, you have to find there's a tremendous lateral load exerted by this structural net. So in each case, we had to find a component of the building that would withstand this lateral load. In some buildings, that was easy. In others, for example, the modern finance building, the marble clad building is actually a wood frame building. And wood frame buildings do not withstand lateral load like that. So we have to design a structural system that spans the roof and ties back to an elevator shaft on the backside of the building.
Is it also, it looks like, unless I'm not reading this right, you also have some ropes that are adhered to the face of the building too?
Yes, there are 2 low connection points. In order to create this kind of contorted arch form, we have 2 low connection points. One on the Nicholas building, which actually ties into a CMU stairwell. That's the one that you can see in the lower left-hand corner there. And the other one is on the modern finance building. Between the 2nd and 3rd floor, there would be a small incision in that building to allow for a plate to come out and connect that lower.
Do you have to get a building permit for this?
Yeah. Yeah, the structural modifications are significant, so they're building.
And for the piece itself, then I assume too, right?
Yes, yeah, we'll submit the structural drawings. I don't know who's going to review them there.
Yeah, right.
Let's
Anything else that there?
Looks good to me.
There's got to be somebody. Okay, I'm good. I think we can wrap this up. I'm hearing, by the way, I'll just tell you, I think it's very interesting and fun. And I think it's energetic.
I do too. And you said, Don, I think the fact that there's some history here with this artist, some things that we can go back to as we ask questions is huge. It's not pioneering from that standpoint.
Yeah. From a safety standpoint,
yeah,
it's a very important aspect.
Good. Okay. Any other questions or
I
comments?
think city, we've always looked for something that really made us unique. What's our Eiffel Tower? What's our St. Louis art? I don't know that this beats that, but I think it makes the city very unique and memorable to anybody who comes in.
It's energy.
The examples throughout the country and the world, this has been an iconic installation, and people will come regionally to see this sculpture. So I think that's what will happen here.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Any other comments, thoughts? Anything from the audience? Yes, please. Would you identify yourself?
Certainly. Kathleen Roberts. Materials down. I guess
I am speaking in opposition to this, and I guess as I saw this, think of the enormous housing crisis that there is in Columbus and Franklin County. It just seems appalling that this kind of money, all of the planning, the structural, all the things that Jim talked about, spent on a piece of art. When we have such a housing crisis, and it just doesn't seem to be addressed. This is lovely if housing. I took the bus downtown. I get on that, get on Clear Road and Broad Street, right, mostly on bus, and I see all of the housing that is in the hilltop in Franklin, areas that need a lot of help. I'm forgetting some of it, but there's an enormous need there. Get closer to town, see the Peloton building, all of that construction. And I'm thinking, so many people, that is so critical for families. How can a child learn well in school when they're worried where they sleep that night and where they're going to have supper? Sorry, I don't see it. I just think we need to address much more harder issues that cause. See signs that look up sky. All of those costs and planning, that's just an enormous amount of money. That could be used elsewhere. I spent a lot of time with my service club and volunteer at the Boys and Girls Club. Build furniture for families in need at the furniture bank. I help cook and serve meals at Vienna Cafe. A lot of volunteer in the community. There's an enormous need out there that this seems to be sending the wrong message to people in Columbus in such a housing crisis.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
I didn't see it.
Great, thank you for your comments. We certainly appreciate that, and there's no one in here, I'm sure, that would argue that we don't have a tremendous need for low-cost housing. Are there any other comments?
There was,
Did we?
to make clear, there was a comment that was mailed in.
Oh, did you see the one that was?
No.
Yes, we got that in our
That's
package. Everyone has seen that.
Need that in.
Did you send a copy of that to the applicant too, so that they've had the benefit of seeing it? If you have not, you can do that.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Any other comments or questions or anything from anybody? Yes, please.
Just one comment in response. Just to be clear, this is a totally privately funded endeavor. There has not been 1 cent of public money involved in the design or construction of this sculpture. So we're clear.
I think she has a question.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Okay, right, thank you. Okay, good. Anything else? Okay. Louis, what else do we have to look at today? Just review your administrative cases then?
Yeah, let me pull those up. So I was looking for 2 places in the record. We had a cell tower upgrade, small projection sign, small water service enclosure, ADA ramp revision, wall sign, admiral, rip repair, admiral window, vinyls that met the guidelines, and wall sign.
Okay. Motion to approve these? Motion approved. Motion, second. Okay. Comments, questions? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you. All those opposed? Okay. Anything else then? Is that it? Take care of it? New business, old business?
That
Everyone, thank you very much for being here. This turned into another pretty long meeting. That North Market thing is a big project. So everyone have a wonderful holiday. Happy New Year. We'll see you later in